Hello there. Well, I guess you could say I've been blocked. Yeah, I've been stuck like this for about a week. I've been living off nothing but raw beef and suspicious stew, which does explain the random acid trips I've been having. I have Beignet here who looks different. I've tried living like I haven't been mysteriously trapped in a video game, but that's kind of hard to do when you got a dozen human Squidwards living right next to you who never shut up! There's gotta be a way to pass the time here before I eventually succumb to my own insanity. Alright, Peak Cinema just dropped. Video game adaptations. The nicest kick to the nuts you'll ever receive. Video game adaptations for the longest time have been seen as nothing but crappy movies that don't do any justice to the games they're adapting or their fans. From hilarious train wrecks like the 90s Mario and Street Fighter movies, to actual garbage like the Resident Evil movies or Assassin's Creed, to one of the worst movies I've ever had the displeasure of watching, Mortal Kombat Annihilation. But as of recently, we've been getting some actually really good video game adaptations. There are still terrible stuff like Borderlands or the Halo show, but we've also gotten The Last of Us, Fallout, the Mario movie, and most famous of all, the Sonic trilogy. Now there are tons of video games that are getting adaptations into film or TV that never have gotten it before, like The Legend of Zelda, God of War, Until Dawn, etc. But one of the most iconic games of all time that people were anticipating getting a movie for the longest time was Minecraft. So that's why I'm in this predicament. Now Minecraft was actually a pretty interesting case when it came from turning a game into a movie, because Minecraft isn't a game known for its, story. I mean, there have been attempts to give Minecraft a story, but we all knew they weren't gonna adapt these spin-offs for the movie. And I think that worked in the adaptation's favor, because that means you can do anything with this movie as long as you keep it relatively close to how the game works. I mean, so many great pieces of entertainment and stories on the internet have come from Minecraft. Whether that be Animation vs. Minecraft, Villager News, the original Monster School, and the hundreds upon hundreds of animations on YouTube between story animations or the iconic parody music videos.
Like an Enderman. Enderman.
Safe to say that not only was the potential for a Minecraft movie massive because of it not having a story in the main game, but also you had so many fan projects that you could pull aspects from to create the perfect Minecraft movie. And what did they decide to do? Treason. A Minecraft movie is a movie... No, that's about it. It is a movie. Now, this movie has been in the works since 2014, with Mojang and WB being behind the project. It was slated to release in 2018 and was originally directed by Shawn Levy, the guy behind the Night at the Museum trilogy and Deadpool and Wolverine. He ended up leaving the project in December 2014 before Rob McElhenney came onto the project. He wanted to actually make the movie reflect the open world nature of the game, and apparently Steve Carell was going to voice an unknown character. But McElhenney's vision sort of withered out, and in 2019 it was announced that Peter Sollett was writing and directing the movie. His original concept was about a teenage girl and her unlikely group of adventurers going to slay the Ender Dragon, and the movie was set to release on March 4th, 2022. And then COVID hit. WB was forced to push it back from its original release date, and in April 2022, it was announced that production on the Minecraft movie was back on, but now Jared Hess was set to direct and Jason Momoa was in early talks to star. It was also announced to be live action. I don't think any of us expected that, and what it ended up actually being, I couldn't come up with if you put me on heavy drugs. Hess stated that he enjoyed trying to adapt something without a story, and that he hoped to find an opportunity for a fun and ridiculous movie. He did end up getting that, for better or for worse. The production crew wanted to make the objects look as close to the game as possible, made up of only cubes. Apparently, several Minecraft YouTubers, including Mumbo Jumbo, were present during the film's production to make stuff like props, and that's just really cool. When it came to casting the star of the show, apparently Jack Black was only supposed to have a cameo in the film as a talking pig, but he was chosen as Steve because his version of Steve was specific to him. Which is to say, he's playing Jack Black. And finally, on September 4th, 2024, the first teaser trailer for a Minecraft movie was shown, and the reactions were well, they weren't pretty, to put it lightly. Everyone was livid over several aspects of the movie, like how it looked like just a ripoff of Jumanji, or how they just threw a blue shirt on Jack Black and call him Steve, or whatever they made poor Jason Momoa wear in this movie. But mainly people were just against the look of the movie and it being live action instead of animated. A lot of people were clamoring for it to get the Sonic movie treatment, which... okay, I need to go on a little tangent here. People who say that X movie needs to get the Sonic movie treatment don't know what they're talking about. Because it's usually the whole look of the movie they're complaining about. There is a massive difference between changing one CGI hedgehog model versus changing the entire look of a movie like this or Shrek 5. So if we could please stop using this one example to act like movie studios will always change something if it gets enough hate, that would be splendid. Now over time, people got more used to not only the look of the movie, but also accepting the fact that this wasn't going to be some super serious epic, but instead, just the stupidest thing ever. Also, this movie has gotten the most memes I've ever seen for a movie since... I don't even think there have been this many. I still hear crafting table in my sleep at night. This movie really is just a deranged middle-aged man yelling Minecraft terms for 2 hours. Now people were excited for the movie, not because it was going to be a great movie, but because it was going to be the single worst thing ever and everyone was going to enjoy every second of it. The movie released on April 4th, 2025 to a 47% on Metacritic, 48% on Rotten Tomatoes from critics, and a 6 out of 10 on IMDb. There were a lot of reviews saying that this movie wasn't even funny bad, it was just bad. And I'm here to confirm those people have no clue what they're talking about. We open with Steve talking about how as a child he yearned for the mines. Yes, I'm going to be quoting every meme in this video and you're just gonna have to deal with it. He was never allowed by old man cave guy right here, so he grew up as a door salesman before remembering his passion and going back to the mines. Listen, this movie's pacing would make Sonic blush, so you're just gonna have to try and follow me during this. He ends up finding the Earth Crystal and the Orb of Dominance before combining them and entering a portal which brings him to the overworld. Okay, so to get my quick comments about the look of this movie out of the way, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't like it at first. But as I've seen more from this movie, the effects for the live-action Minecraft world look fine. The green screen of the actors looks genuinely horrendous at some points, but overall they're fine. Steve goes over the multiple things he's done, like building houses and finding a dog he names Dennis. He ends up using flint and steel to open a portal to the Nether, a place with no joy or creativity. Steve meets the piglins and their leader, Malgosia, who takes them as hostage and takes the combined cube for herself. It is genuinely a headache to keep up with this. They manage to escape from their cage, and Steve gives Dennis the crystal and orb and tells him to run off with it while he holds off the piglins. Steve gets captured again as Dennis runs all the way back to Steve's house in the real world and puts it under his bed. How did Dennis manage to run back so fast? Because he has the speed of the pacing of this movie. Okay, that's my last pacing joke for the next couple minutes. So the portal from the real world to the overworld is closed and Dennis is stuck in the real world. I'm sure no one will question why this dog looks so blocky. Anyways, we cut to one of our four main characters, Garrett the Garbage Man Garrison, driving to his failing video game store. Garrett was once a champion of the arcade game Moog City Rampage, but is now the owner of a failing video game store. This movie really is just Jumanji meets Pixels, but for brain rot kids. Garrett gets an eviction notice and heads over to a storage auction to hopefully gain something to sell off for cash. Oh my god, it's Dan TDM! So yeah, some Minecraft YouTubers like Dan, Afmao, Mumbo Jumbo, and LD Shadow Lady make appearances in this movie as cameos. I honestly think these are better than the cameos for the FNAF movie with Corey X Kenshin and MatPat because they're not in your face as much. Then again, Matt does say that's just a theory, so... Garrett ends up gaining the items of Steve's house where he ends up getting his hands on the crystal and orb. Meanwhile, we meet our other major characters of the movie. Natalie and Henry, two siblings who moved to Chuglass, Idaho after their mom dies and they really don't know how to fit in. And the real estate agent who wants to open a petting zoo, Dawn. Guess what happens to these characters by the end of the movie? You know, one part of this was correct. Henry meets Garrett on his way to school, meets his vice principal Jennifer Coolidge, and goes to art class where he shows his ability to create stuff, which somehow transitions into him building a jetpack which some bullies sabotage before the jetpack launches into a potato chip factory nearby that Natalie's working at and destroys the mascot. I made none of that up, and the second half of that was like 2 minutes in the movie tops. In order to get himself out of trouble, Henry pretends that Garrett is his uncle and they drive back to the game store to discuss their options. Henry combines the crystal and orb, which leads him and Garrett to Steve's cave. Natalie and Dawn end up tracking him down there and all four enter the portal to the overworld. How did Natalie and Dawn manage to catch up with the other two so quickly? Don't question it. As the four start to search around, a villager who just happened to be there walks through the portal. Meanwhile, Malgosia gets word that the crystal and the orb have returned to the overworld, so she sends Steve to go retrieve them by basically lying that she has Dennis captive. Freeing a prisoner feels like a lot more work than just sending her minions to go get it if she really thinks the orb and the crystal just plop back into the overworld, but whatever. Garrett tries to speak with Pink Sheep, side character to iconic YouTube channel Exploding TNT. Oh, the nostalgia drug. I think it's in my lungs. Right as it turns to night. The gang then get attacked by a group of mobs and Garrett falls down a hole, and all four of you should be dead right now. I don't think y'all understand. Skeletons have aimbot in the game, but here they have Stormtrooper aim. But the one shot a skeleton makes is hitting a spider jockey and making all the mobs trip over each other, which allows Henry, Dawn, and Natalie to escape. Fun. Also, all of the skeletons have enchanted bows. Sure, why not? Henry runs into a tree and discovers the ability of breaking and placing blocks, which allows him to build this big structure for him and the girls. Meanwhile, Garrett gets out of the hole and ends up getting blown up by a creeper. You should be dead! Don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, the plot armor only gets worse from here. Also, this poor sheep gets torn to shreds. I thought this was a kid's movie. Garrett picks up the cube, only for the earth crystal to get destroyed by an arrow. Again, the one time the skeletons don't have Stormtrooper aim. Garrett gets pulled into Henry's structure by Henry, but a creeper that just so happens to get hit by a flame arrow blows up the bottom and zombies start to come in. The one time! The four are about to get killed by zombies, but just in the nick of time, Steve shows up and takes out the zombies. Then we get that one clip from the original trailer. I am Steve. Yeah! So Steve explains that the only way they're getting home is with the Earth Crystal, and that there's another one at the Woodland Mansion. So the five decide to form an unlikely alliance with one another. I just want to say, Steve and Garrett's dynamic in this movie might be one of its unironic positives. I don't know, I just think Jason Momoa and Jack Black's banter is kind of funny. Why is their ship named Broken Pickaxe? Who is making these ship names? Also, Steve screaming like a madman now makes sense considering he's been in a dungeon in the Nether for God knows how long. The group goes to a village in order to stock up on supply, and they meet the villagers who love doing stuff like crushing loaf. This video is gonna age like milk in like a year, maybe even less. Plus, we get a Technoblade cameo. My heart is a puddle on the floor. I'm gonna go cry in the closet now. Then they arrive at Steve's Lava Chicken store, and I will now reenact this entire scene for you. You ever wonder what happens when you mix hot lava and chicken? I did. And you're about to find out. Uh-oh. You hear that? That's the sound of sizzling. Smell. La lava. Chicken. Steve's Lava Chicken, yeah, tasty as hell. Ooh, mama sita, now you're ringing the bell. Crispy and juicy, now you're having a snack. Ooh, super spicy, it's a lava attack. Thank you very much. I'll be here all night. Malgosia gets word of Steve and the main four joining forces, so she sends piglins led by General Chungus. Yes, there is a character in this movie named Chungus, and yes, he is really annoying and I hate him. Steve says, big ol' red ones. Steve and Natalie argue about Henry utilizing his creativity in the real world, and Henry gets mad at Natalie. Henry and Natalie's conflict in the movie kinda sucks. Like, they split up later, and when they reunite, they just get over their conflict because Dawn gives Natalie one talk. Fascinating. Steve brings Henry and Garrett to the stash, including diamond armor, full set, which is not a full set. I can't tell if this movie is trying to intentionally be bad or not anymore. Garrett finds an ender pearl and wastes it. Steve shows him a crafting table, and Garrett crafts a pair of water buckets. This movie isn't even trying to be game accurate anymore. Also, Henry crafts a tater tot launcher. Steve tells Garrett about his loads of diamonds, and they make a deal to make a detour to that cave on their way to the mansion, or Steve does not get the orb. Garrett, buddy, pal, if Steve doesn't get that orb, you're not going to be able to spend those riches because you're not going home. Garrett is an idiot. The piglins then raid the village, and Chungus says he has to unalive Steve. I hate this character so much. Chungus wipes the floor with Garrett while Natalie, Henry, and Dawn wipe the floor with piglins. Natalie and Dawn are equipped with only a hoe and shovel. This movie is so stupid. Steve, Garrett, and Henry run to a cliff, and Steve equips the other two with elytras, and they- Hold up! 2 elytras? So you're gonna try and convince me that Steve has 2 elytras, yet he's never been to the Nether before. So unless Steve got the super slim chance of getting a full Eye of Ender end portal, I don't believe he has 2 of these. The two fly as Steve shouts, "Coming in hot!" and grabs onto Garrett. There is so many horrible out of context images in this scene. There's also many moments where they should be dead, but that's just this movie in a nutshell. The 3 end up falling together, but they're cushioned by water bucket. Release! I've said this many memes, we're not even an hour into the movie. Now we cut back to the real world where Jennifer Coolidge hits the villager with her car, and thus starts this subplot of Jennifer Coolidge dating a villager. You know, I was dreading this subplot when I first saw the trailers for the movie, but thankfully, this subplot takes up not even 10 minutes of this movie. Because this movie's pacing sucks. Steve explains what's going on and explains Malgosia's backstory. She tried to show everyone her creativity by dancing on Nether's Got Talent, oh my god in heaven. But everyone laughed at her and embarrassed her, so she vowed to destroy all creativity. You know, given all the insanity I've been talking about for the last hour, this is relatively tame. Steve explains that if she gets the cube, everything in this world will wither and die. He said wither! Guys, he said wither. After Chungus' failure, Malgosia sends the Great Hog to go after him, and he kills Chungus. Thank God! Natalie and Dawn talk about how being a grown-up sucks, and this is like the closest thing we get to Natalie having any development in her character development. This character arc sucks so much. Anyways, they just so happen to cross paths with Dennis and follow him. Meanwhile, the guy trio goes through the caves and finds Madame. Henry gets on Garrett's case for wasting time, and right then the Great Hog finds them, because of course it does. They get into the minecarts and speed off before stopping right in front of Steve's creeper farm. Garrett pushes the minecarts to a redstone rail and Steve and Henry start slapping creepers, which is what Garrett did and what got that creeper to blow him up before. The point is, you should be dead again. So, they get out right as the entire cave blows up. Henry gets on Garrett's case again, but Garrett starts to talk about how his life sucks and how he's alone and yada yada yada. Jennifer and villager date scene. The boys get to the Woodland Mansion and their plan is Steve and Garrett distract the pillagers with music while Henry sneaks up to get the crystal. I feel like there is a much better way to get this crystal, but that wouldn't make theaters explode, so Steve and Garrett get captured and Garrett is forced to face off against, you know what, I'll let the audiences say it with me, Chicken Jockey! So in case you've been living under a rock, theaters all across America have been having small and reasonable reactions whenever Poe from Kung Fu Panda says these 2 words. They've been throwing popcorn everywhere, screaming like monkeys. One person brought a whole live chicken into the theater. How do you sneak a chicken into the theater? My condolences go out to the poor theater employees who have to clean up the theater after the showings. Y'all are some real heroes. Anyways, back to film. Garrett gets demolished by the chicken jockey, but Steve saves him last second. Wrestling, music, fiery hellscape, pandas. This is just Jack Black the movie. Now I'm even less convinced that Jack Black was chosen because this role was specific to him. Yeah, right. Meanwhile, Henry finds the crystal, but he looks into an Enderman's eyes and sees illusions of his friends calling him a loser. That's Herobrine! But he breaks free from it and starts blindly swinging, which somehow kills the Enderman. Blindly swinging, and he killed an Enderman. I want it to be known that earlier Steve said that he nearly died trying to fight an Enderman for that pearl that Garrett threw. They get out of there barely right as Malgosia's forces show up. She steals the orb and crystal and orders her piglins to blow up the bridge. Steve throws Henry onto one of the gas platforms and Steve uses a slime cube to join him. Garrett makes a heroic sacrifice right as the bridge blows up, and he is dead. The wave of the explosion knocks the gas over, and Steve and Henry crash into a tree and get knocked out. Later on, they wake up in a mushroom hut with Dawn, Natalie, and Dennis. Remember them? Neither do I. The team catch up with each other as Malgosia starts the Great Darkening. Her forces start to come through and a darkness falls upon the land. The group comes together to fight back against her, and we get the best and worst line I've ever heard in a movie.
First we mine, then we craft. Let's Minecraft!
That's a line only humans can write. No AI or aliens can come up with that level of writing perfection. Also, I would like to mention that in this little reunion moment, they mention Garrett once. Really doesn't feel like Steve or Henry care that he's dead. The team prepares for battle, like Dawn gathering a crap ton of bones for wolves, Steve going back to the cave to get diamonds, stuff like that. All of this is happening while Malgosia is still getting her forces into the overworld. So either our heroes are doing this at lightning speeds or Malgosia's forces got into a traffic jam going in. I think this scene really shows how bad this movie's pacing can get. Henry and Natalie start making iron golems and Henry gives one of them the boost of swiftness, turning him into a swiftness golem, I don't know. The golems and piglins duke it out as Henry and Natalie try to get to the portal. Steve shows up in full diamond armor and I'm sorry, this looks hilarious. I get that Jack Black is round, but he's not round enough to not make this look any less stupid. His chest plate gets one shot, the Swiftness Golem and a new Great Hog duke it out, and Henry enderpearls onto the top of the portal. The Great Hog almost kills Natalie before some of Dawn's wolves come in and save her. Henry almost grabs the cube before the Great Hog shoots at him and knocks him off the portal. He's about to fall to his death, but then... Garrett arrives to save him. Garrett did not survive that explosion. I don't care if he used the water bucket to cushion his fall. He was in the middle of that bridge explosion. But that creeper, there was a major difference between that creeper and the entire bridge blowing up. This movie is so stupid. Anyways, they make the gas blow up the portal, which doesn't destroy the orb somehow. Steve defeats Malgosha, and this booth her trying to sneak attack stab Steve was kind of funny. I'll give the movie that. After the fight, everyone returns to the portal. I'm sorry, the Earth Crystal can survive falling down this far, but not a flame arrow. Yeah, right. Steve sings a goodbye ode to Dennis. This really does feel like Jack Black wanted to do another Peaches song, and he was going to take any opportunity he could get. The four return to the real world, as does Steve. It ends with Garrett's store staying and the guys creating a new arcade game, Moog City Battle Buddies. Steve and Garrett becoming a singing duo, Dawn opening up a pet store, Natalie starting a self-defense class, and Henry actually becoming a popular kid. And there ends a Minecraft movie. Okay, mid-credit scene where it's revealed that Jennifer Coolidge can speak Villager and the Villager can speak English, and post-credit scene that teases Alex. And there ends a Minecraft movie. That was a lot to take in. So this movie isn't exactly objectively good. Okay, let's break this down. Let me give some unironic positives. Again, Jack Black and Jason Momoa's acting and dynamic with one another is actually pretty good. There are some jokes in this movie that are kind of funny. Some of the action is neat, and the soundtrack is really good. The cinematic recreations of Minecraft music gave me chills in the theaters, and I think as an adaptation of the game, it's okay. Yeah, this movie's really bad. The story is very generic, and you can guess where everything is gonna go in the first 20-ish minutes of the movie. The characters are really flat, with the only really interesting ones being Steve and Garrett, to be honest. Malgosha is a really bland villain who does almost nothing for most of the movie and has a really stupid motivation, which I guess fits the movie. The green screen looks atrocious at points for a movie with a $150 million budget. I have not seen pacing for a movie that is this lightning fast since The Rise of Skywalker. You never want me to compare something to The Rise of Skywalker. It goes by so fast that it never gives anything in this movie time to breathe. So many emotional and character moments in this movie don't work because the pacing doesn't give them any time to sink in. A lot of the humor is painfully unfunny kids humor, and even if it didn't bother me as much as I expected it to, the Jennifer Coolidge and Villager dating subplot was completely unnecessary and could have been cut from the movie. The fact there is filler in a movie that goes by this fast is incredible to me. Now, with all this being said, this movie isn't a very good movie, but that doesn't mean it's not an enjoyable movie. I feel like there are three ways you can create a video game adaptation while still being faithful to the source. The first one is just having a genuinely great story with amazing characters and deep themes, example, The Last of Us show. The second one is having a good story while still being able to have fun, the best examples for this being the Sonic movies. And the third example is going balls to the walls nuts with it and having fun with the game's concept, example, this movie. These three adaptations strike the perfect scale of how to do a game adaptation. The reason why stuff like Borderlands or the Halo show failed is because it was none of these things. A video game adaptation doesn't always have to be this objectively fantastic movie or show with an incredible plot or characters. Sometimes giving the fans what they want, like the Mario movie or Sonic trilogy, or having fun with the concepts of the game like the Minecraft movie is enough for some people. So what I'm trying to say is that objectively a Minecraft movie is like a 3 out of 10. But on my signature ironic enjoyment scale, I'm gonna give this movie a 9 out of 10. Not a very good movie, but definitely an enjoyable one. Well, now that the movie didn't show you this, I will now show you how to beat Minecraft.
Okay, so you chop tree, you make sticks and making table with wood from tree. You mine stone. You make stone tool. You mine iron and make iron tool. You mine diamond and make diamond tool. You mine obsidian. You make portal to hell. You spend 9 years trying to find another fortress, and by the time you find one, you just want to jump into the lava and die! You kill Fire Tornado. You kill Slender Man. You create Eyeball. You find Hold Strong. You spend 9 more years trying to find the portal room, and by the time you find it, you just want to leave the game and die! You go into Portal. You kill Dragon. You jump into Portal.
Where did Steven Garrett get those saxophones from? Da 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 Villager News.